Alright, today we're going to put together the engine. So I've got the two engine halves already glued together, and I'm now going to prep them, get the valve covers glued on where they're supposed to be, and then we'll get some paint on them, and we'll finish putting everything else together on it, and then I'll show you how to do the headers to make them look correct. So let's get out a file here and work on. So what you're trying to do here is get where the oil pan is going to sit in here comfortably. Right now it's not going to because there's a pretty big ledge there, so I'm going to knock that down. I just have a flat file. You knock down like this surface where the bell housing is, and also where the front pulley is too, because that's where the tightness is. And then yeah, that fits in there pretty good. So I've got that about where it needs to be. The rest of it is just going to be clean up top here. Like, you want to get this smooth because the intake manifold is going to sit there. So that's another place you really need to focus on. And then obviously the rest of it is to make it look more realistic. So it doesn't have a big old place in there where two halves are seamed together, and it's not supposed to be there. So. And you can use different stuff. I've got different files and sanding sticks, different things like that, all of which work really good. So, but a file is going to get you the most area covered in the least amount of time. The sanding stick is more for finesse work, and where you try not to lose any detail or whatever. So I'll usually use that on the places that are going to be seen, and then I use the file on the surfaces that need to be flat because something's getting glued to them. So it's just the way I do it on mine. You don't have to worry much about the top on the transmission and the bell housing because that won't be seen, but the bottom will be. So try to get the front as good as you can. Alright, that's pretty good there. So, like I said, and mainly you're wanting the oil pan to fit in there good and snug and flat. So we've got that accomplished. So now, the other thing I can glue on here before I actually paint the engine block is the cylinder heads. The intake manifold I painted with I think aluminum metallizer from Testers, and I just went straight over the Salvinos chrome, and it turned out like that, which I think looks pretty good. So the engine, I'm going to paint gunmetal. So the engine block, the cylinder heads will be gunmetal. The transmission will be aluminum. The bell housing I'm going to hand paint like a flat red, basically. So that's the paint I'm going to be going with on the engine. Also, the only other thing I really did to kind of prep was I painted the pulleys and the belts and the alternator. The fan belt's ready to be glued on. I also drilled out the holes for the breathers, wherever they're at, right here. So I drilled those holes out. They are a 1/16 inch hole. That's what I used anyway, and it's probably a tad big for that, but well, I thought it was, but they're not sliding down in there, so maybe they're just right. I don't know. I kind of got to work with it a little bit. They seem like they're a little bit too tight, but the other set I did, the same drill, is a little bit too loose, if I can find it. Here it is. On the other side, goes in there way too far. So, I don't know what I did there. But, anyways, drill those holes out before you put the breathers in. It's going to make it a little bit easier. So, alright. I'll show you how I do these, the cylinder heads. So first, I make sure that this is going to be flat on here. And it is. And I'm not gluing this on yet, but I'm kind of going to use it to set everything up. So, put the glue on, get one head situated, kind of line it up pretty good there. Go ahead and get the other one glued on there. Kind of get it situated, and we'll use this and kind of just set it in there. What you're wanting is to get rid of the gap where this sits, so it isn't just a big old hole there, and get it set up for the front and the back. So now when you glue that on later, it's not going to be missing or just a big gap here and tied up against there on the other side. It's going to be how it's supposed to be. So we'll let that dry, and then I'm going to paint it, and I'm going to paint the other side. I'm at this point on the other engine as well, so I'm going to paint that. When I come back, all this will be painted, and we'll start doing the rest of the assembly on that, and then I'll show you the headers. I'll be right back. Alright, now that I got the engine painted, I'm going to start assembling it, and we're going to start with the oil pan. And because all this is the Salvinos chrome, I'm going to just go ahead and use super glue on it. Most of the time I would just have this stuff stripped of the chrome, and then I would just use my normal glue, but with this chrome I just go ahead and paint over the top of it and just use super glue to glue it together. So that's what we're going to do here. Alright, that's on there. Now we got the intake manifold. Now the colors I used on the engine block is Tester's gunmetal, the Model Master's gunmetal through an airbrush. Transmission is aluminum. The bell housing is flat red. I brush painted the bell housing. The rest of it I airbrushed. Alright, next is the valve covers. Your ones with the breathers go on the driver's side, unless you're building a road course car, then it may go on the other side. Doesn't necessarily have to, but I think in a lot of the pictures I see a road course car has got them on the passenger side. So anyways, those are glued on there, and since I just got this out, I'll go ahead and glue the belts and pulleys on using super glue as well. if it'll fit. Alright, I'll let that dry. Now, told you I was going to show you how to do the sorry, the headers. So I've already cleaned all these up, and what you want to do is obviously get your mold lines off of there. And then what I like to do, next step, is I'll drill the holes out. There's two holes, one on the front and one on the back pipes where they connect together. I'll kind of drill those out just so the tabs fit in there better. That's the first thing I do. Then I'll kind of mate them up, make sure that they're good. They are. And then I'll just use my Tamiya extra thin, run it along there. And then kind of get them together. And I'll try to let them dry at the point where they're flat against each other, because I mean you can move it around in and out, but flat against each other is about where it should be. So I'll let that dry for a while. Now what I do after that is I'll use sprue goo, which is Tamiya extra thin and some leftover sprue mixed together, and I'll run it over that seam there, so where you come up with something like this where it's all kind of filled in. Then I've got this file, it's like a triangle, and I'll run it through where the pipes run just to give it that crease again. And this stuff sands pretty smooth. Okay, so it's one of the main reasons why I did two of these at once, so I can kind of start working on something beforehand, let it dry, and then I can just go right into showing you the technique on this. So anyways, you run it through the grooves where the pipes are separating. This top one's a little bit difficult because the pipe actually overhangs where that is, so you kind of just got to make it happen. But then you end up with something like that, which looks quite a bit better than just having it glued together and stuff like that. So and you can work on this as much or as little as you want to. You know, I try to just get a good little groove in there. That way it's defined where the pipe is. You know what I mean? And you could also use probably an X-Acto knife in there as well to get that done if you don't have a file like this. Which this I think just came in it's probably woodworking file actually. But then there you have that. So it looks pretty decent. And then in theory, it should just kind of clip up in there where it's supposed to go. Now this isn't painted yet, so I don't want to get it glued in there, but kind of just clips right into place and looks pretty damn good. So what I'll do now is I'll paint it. I'll do the same technique on this one I just glued together, and it'll be ready to go. Next video I do is going to be suspension, and then we'll start putting stuff together. I still got the roll cage separate from the chassis. So what I plan on doing is, like, I'll put the engine in before I even put the roll cage in, because I've I've done it the other way around, and it just doesn't fit in there real good. So I'm going to put the engine in first. I'll actually put the suspension all together first, put it in the car front and rear, and then I'll put the engine in. Then we'll do the chassis, and then it's just tires, and then we're starting to rock on the body. So I'll see y'all next time. Thank you for watching.